Friday evenings. If you grew up in America in the 1970s and early 1980s, those two words mean something specific to you. They mean dinner finished early. They mean the whole family gathered in the living room without anyone having to ask. They mean the television turning on at 8 o'clock and a familiar theme playing and a little girl running down a hillside with her sisters in the golden afternoon light. They mean Little House on the Prairie. And this week, Netflix announced a reboot. A new Little House on the Prairie. New cast, new production, new everything. And the response from the people who actually grew up watching the original has been, to put it gently, deeply emotional. Melissa Gilbert, who played Laura Ingalls for 9 years, has something to say about it. The original cast has something to say about it, and frankly, so do we. Today we are telling the complete story. The original show. The cast then and now. Michael Landon's irreplaceable legacy. And what the Netflix reboot means for everything the original built. This is going to be a real conversation. The kind the Hollywood press is not having. If you are new here, please subscribe right now. We tell the complete stories behind the shows and the people who shaped your generation. Every single week, you need to be here for this one. Little House on the Prairie premiered on NBC on September 11th, 1974. It ran for 9 seasons, 204 episodes, until 1983, and it was not just popular. It was loved in a way that very few television shows ever achieve. The difference between popular and loved is important. Popular means people watch. Loved means people feel like the show is part of their family. Little House on the Prairie was part of your family. The Ingalls family, Charles, Caroline, Laura, Mary, Carrie, they came into your home every Friday evening, and they felt real in a way that went beyond performance. They struggled with things that real families struggled with. Illness, financial hardship, loss. The kind of grief that does not resolve neatly in 60 minutes, but that you carry with you and learn to live alongside. And they loved each other with a consistency and a depth that made you believe love like that was possible. If you watched this show as a child or a teenager or a young parent, it shaped something in you. It showed you what a family could look like at its best. And the man at the center of all of it, the man who made you believe in Charles Ingalls as a real human being rather than a television character, was Michael Landon. Michael Landon was born Eugene Maurice Horowitz on October 31st, 1936, in Forest Hills, Queens, New York. He did not have an easy childhood. His father was Jewish. His mother was Irish Catholic. Their marriage was unhappy. The household was troubled. His mother suffered from serious mental illness that left deep marks on the boy who would eventually play television's most beloved father. There is a particular kind of person who grows up in chaos and decides, consciously or not, to spend the rest of their life creating the stability they never had. Michael Landon was that kind of person. He had already played Little Joe Cartwright on Bonanza for 14 years when he came to Little House on the Prairie. 14 years of being television's son. And then he became television's father. He did not just act Charles Ingalls, he produced the show. He directed episodes. He wrote scripts. He had complete creative control over every element of the world that the Ingalls family inhabited. He built Walnut Grove the way Charles Ingalls would have built it, with his own hands, with extraordinary care, with the intention that it would last. The cast adored him. Melissa Gilbert has spoken about Michael Landon in interviews across decades with a consistency that tells you something important. The love in her voice when she talks about him is not the polished warmth of a celebrity being professional about a former colleague. It is the love of a daughter. She was 10 years old when she was cast as Laura Ingalls. Michael Landon was the man she worked alongside from 10 to 19 years old, the years when a young person is most impressionable, most hungry for guidance, most in need of an example of how adults can be at their best. He was that example for her. And then in April 1991, Michael Landon was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He kept it quiet initially. He was trying to protect people, trying to manage the news, trying to find a way to hold the information that did not break everyone around him. He gave one final interview to Johnny Carson. If you have ever watched that interview, you know exactly what it feels like to watch someone be brave. He was 54 years old. He died on July 1st, 1991. And Melissa Gilbert found out from a phone call. She has never fully recovered from that loss. Not in the way people mean when they say someone has not recovered from grief, but in the way that you carry someone with you permanently, in the space between your ribs where the people you love most take up residence. Here is what makes the Netflix reboot announcement so complicated for the people who love this show. It is not just that they are remaking a beloved classic. It is that they are remaking something that was held together by a specific human being who cannot be replaced. And what Melissa Gilbert said about that, what she said publicly this week, is something you need to hear. We are getting to that in just a moment. But first, let us talk about what happened to the rest of the original cast. Because some of those stories are remarkable. And some of them are heartbreaking. Stay with us. Melissa Gilbert was born on May 8, 1964, in Los Angeles. She was cast as Laura Ingalls at 10 years old, and the role defined the first half of her life in ways she is still untangling. Growing up famous is complicated. Growing up famous as a character who represents innocence and goodness is even more complicated, because the real person inside that character is still growing up, still making mistakes, still figuring things out, while the world expects her to be half-pint forever. After Little House ended, Melissa Gilbert worked consistently. She married twice. She had children. And then she married Timothy Busfield in 2013, and something shifted. She has spoken about that relationship with the kind of specific gratitude that people have when they finally find the thing they were looking for after a very long search. She moved out of Los Angeles. She wrote a memoir. She ran for political office in Michigan. She is 61 years old in 2026. She has had significant health challenges, including spinal surgery, that she has been open about publicly. She looks like someone who has lived a full life and knows it, which is exactly what she has done. Karen Grassel played Ma Caroline Ingalls, the quiet, steady, unshakable center of the Ingalls household, and the story behind Karen Grassel and Michael Landon is one of the more complicated ones in the show's history. She released a memoir. In it, she was honest, genuinely honest, not performatively honest, about the tensions that existed between her and Landon during the show's production. She felt undervalued. She felt that her role, Ma, the mother, the constant, was treated as less important than it actually was. She felt that the creative control Landon wielded was not always wielded fairly. She said these things out loud, in print, with her name on the cover. That takes a specific kind of courage. She is now in her early 80s. She continues to act. She appears at fan events with the warmth of someone who understands that the show mattered to people, regardless of what happened behind the scenes. Allison Arngrim played the villain. Nellie Oleson was selfish and spoiled and mean in ways that made children across America absolutely certain they hated her. They did not hate Allison Arngrim. They hated Nellie, and Allison Arngrim has spent decades being gracious about the fact that she played one of television's most effective villains so well that people still approach her with complicated feelings about it. In her memoir, she revealed something that changed the way people understood her performance. She was being abused during the years she played Nellie. The anger she brought to Nellie Oleson, the specific, vivid, believable anger of that character, it had somewhere real to come from. She survived. She healed. She became an advocate for abuse survivors. She speaks publicly about her experience with clarity and courage. She is one of the most remarkable stories in the entire Little House cast. Melissa Sue Anderson played Laura's older sister Mary, the one whose blindness became one of the show's most emotionally significant storylines. Her relationship with the rest of the cast has been described in various interviews as more complicated than it appeared on screen. She moved to Canada. She largely stepped away from Hollywood. She has given occasional interviews, but lives a private life by preference. She is in her early 60s now. We are going to stop right there for just a moment. Because what we have not yet covered, the Netflix reboot, what Luke Bracey's casting means, and what Melissa Gilbert said publicly this week about what they are doing to Michael Landon's legacy, that is the second half of this story. Before we continue, if this is resonating with you, if Little House on the Prairie was part of your Friday evenings, part of your family, please subscribe right now. We tell the complete stories, the real ones. Every week, subscribe, and let us finish this together. Netflix has announced a Little House on the Prairie reboot. Let us talk about what we actually know. The new series will be produced for Netflix. It is a significant production with a real budget and serious intentions behind it. Luke Bracey has been cast in the lead role. Luke Bracey is a 35-year-old Australian actor. He is talented. His previous work includes Point Break and Holiday and several other projects that demonstrate real range. He is not Michael Landon. Nobody is Michael Landon. That is not a criticism of Luke Bracey. That is simply a fact about what Michael Landon brought to that role that went beyond acting technique. Michael Landon brought a lifetime of yearning to be the father he never had. He brought the specific ache of a man from a troubled home playing a man from a loving one. He brought 20 years of being on television in front of an audience that trusted him. Luke Bracey brings his talent, which is real, which may be sufficient for a new version of this story. But it is not the same, and the people who grew up watching Michael Landon understand that distinction, even if they cannot always articulate it. The Netflix Little House on the Prairie cast beyond Luke Bracey is still being revealed. The searches for Little House on the Prairie Netflix cast spiking at 600% this week tell you that fans are desperately trying to understand who is going to be inhabiting these roles. The release date has not been officially confirmed. The searches for Little House Prairie Netflix release date spiking at 500% confirm that fans want to know, partly out of excitement, partly out of a desire to prepare themselves emotionally. Melissa Gilbert has spoken. She has done what Melissa Gilbert does when something matters to her, which is to be honest about it in public, even when honesty is uncomfortable. She has acknowledged the reboot. She has been careful in the way that someone is careful when they are trying to balance their genuine feelings with the professional reality that they do not control what Netflix does with a property. But underneath the carefulness, the feeling is clear. This was not something she was asked about before it was announced. This was not something where the person who played Laura Ingalls for 9 years and who loved Michael Landon like a father was consulted in a meaningful way. A show that was built on the idea of family, on the Ingalls family specifically, on the idea that family means you bring people in and you make them feel they matter, was rebooted without the family being part of the conversation. There is an irony there that is too large to ignore. She wishes the production well. She genuinely does. Because she understands what Little House on the Prairie means to people. She just also knows what it cost to make the original, what it required of Michael Landon, what it gave to the audience. And she is not certain a Netflix production with a new cast and a streaming release date can replicate that. Neither are we. Let us be specific about what Little House on the Prairie actually gave to the people who watched it. It gave them an example of a marriage. Charles and Caroline Ingalls were not a perfect couple. They disagreed. They struggled. They faced things together that would have broken many marriages. But they chose each other. Repeatedly. Consciously, with the awareness that the choice required daily renewal rather than a single declaration. Women who watched Little House on the Prairie in the 1970s were watching that marriage at the exact moment their own ideas about marriage were forming. They saw a man who worked with his hands and cried without embarrassment when something was worth crying about. They saw a woman who was strong in the specific way that quiet strength works, steadily, without announcement, without needing anyone to notice. They saw a family that fought and forgave and showed up for each other regardless. That is what they are worried the reboot will not capture. Not the Prairie, not the costumes, not the production values, the truth of what that family represented. Little House on the Prairie is based on the books of Laura Ingalls Wilder. Laura Ingalls Wilder was a real person. She lived from 1867 to 1957. She began writing her memoirs, the books that became the Little House series, at 65 years old. 65 years old, beginning the work that would make her one of the most beloved authors in American history. There is something important in that. The real Laura Ingalls was a person who waited until late in her life to tell her own story, who trusted that her story was worth telling even though she was not young anymore and the world she was describing had long since disappeared. And she was right. Her books shaped a television show that shaped millions of childhoods. And now, that television show is being reimagined for an audience that may have never read the books or watched the original series. Whether that is a good thing or a troubling thing probably depends on how you feel about the original. If you loved it, really loved it. In the way that people love things that shaped who they became, you probably feel both at once. Hope that something you love will reach new people, and grief that in reaching new people, it will inevitably become something different from what it was to you. Friday evenings, you cannot get them back. None of us can. The specific quality of a Friday evening in 1977 or 1979 or 1981, when the Ingalls family theme started playing and you settled into the couch and the world outside stopped mattering for a while, that is not something Netflix can stream. But here is what they can do. They can make something that matters to someone else the way the original mattered to you. A child watching the Netflix Little House on the Prairie in 2026 might have their own version of your Friday evening. Their own memory of a family on a screen that showed them what families could be. Their own version of Michael Landon, not Landon himself, but someone who embodies for them what Landon embodied for you. We hope that happens. We genuinely hope that happens. Because Little House on the Prairie at its best was never just a television show. It was a promise. A promise that families are worth fighting for. That love is worth choosing every day. That goodness is real even when the world makes it hard. That promise deserves to reach every generation. Even if none of us can quite believe that anyone could do it the way Michael Landon did. Tell us in the comments exactly what you think about the Netflix reboot. Are you open to it? Are you protective of the original? Are you somewhere in the complicated middle where you want to be hopeful but cannot quite stop yourself from worrying? Tell us your Little House memory. Tell us the episode that made you cry, because there were many episodes that made you cry. Tell us what Michael Landon meant to you personally. This comment section is yours, and the people watching this video are the people who actually lived through Little House on the Prairie as it aired. Your voices are the ones that matter most in this conversation. If you have not subscribed yet, please do that right now. We tell real stories, complete stories, the ones behind the shows that shaped who you are. And next week we have something coming that you are absolutely not going to want to miss. Subscribe so you are here when it arrives. We will see you in the next one.